blood of incredible creatures older than dinosaurs. This blood provides the safety of many drugs, which you may have taken this morning, and its owners, arthropods, have seen evolutionary change for over 450 million years and have become a symbol of survival. While horseshoe crabs were once only threatened by cataclysmic events, humans have now intervened. In the 1970s, humans began pumping out their blood. Soon it became one of the most expensive liquids on the planet. However, it is extracted not because of its price, but because it is needed to test safe drugs and vaccines. Horseshoe crabs have traveled millions of years, but are now endangered. It is thought that 10 to 30% of individuals released after milking do not survive. Horseshoe crabs inhabit the coasts of seas and oceans, depending on the species, from the Russian Far East to Southeast Asia, as well as the east coast of the United States, reaching out to the Atlantic Ocean. However, among all the diversity of animal life, horseshoe crabs stand out with a feature that makes them truly unique: the color of their blood. Why blue? Unlike human red blood, which gets its color from a hemoglobin molecule with iron, the blood of horseshoe crabs contains hemocyanin with copper. This copper-rich molecule is responsible for oxygen transport, and when oxidized, gives the blood its bluish hue. But what makes this blood really special is its incredible value to medicine. The blood of horseshoe crabs contains a unique substance called LAL, Limulus amoebocyte lysate. This component has the unique ability to detect bacterial endotoxins even at very low concentrations. This has made LAL an invaluable tool in the pharmaceutical industry for sterility testing of products. It is because of the properties of such blood, the immune system response, that the wounds of horseshoe crabs literally heal immediately, because their blood can almost instantly, after coming into contact with microbes, form clots at the base of the wound. These form a barrier that prevents germs from infecting their blood. Horseshoe crabs have been protecting us our whole lives, and we don't even know it. If I were the horseshoe crabs, I would even be offended. What's more, each of us has actually been saved at least once by horseshoe crabs, because horseshoe crabs' blood is used to test new vaccines for contamination. Getting your pet vaccinated against rabies, the horseshoe crab has helped again. Does someone close to you have a pacemaker? Thank you, horseshoe crab, for quality artificial joints and implants. We should thank him too. Injectable drugs, intravenous solutions, and implantable medical devices for both humans and animals are quality checked for safety using a test derived from the blood of horseshoe crabs. I can't imagine what we'd do without these guys. But scientists decided to take it a step further and figure out how to use horseshoe crab blood to detect primitive life forms on other planets. They put blood enzymes into a portable device that can check for signs of life on microorganisms in soil, water, or any other environment. The blood will react in exactly the same way it does in the lab. That is, it will curdle. It turns out that this is something of a get-rich-quick for researchers. If there are microbes in a sample from another planet, the blood will thicken as soon as it comes into contact with them, which means we'll discover life beyond Earth. Thanks again, horseshoe crabs. In recent years, environmentalists have increased their advocacy for limiting the use of horseshoe crabs in pharmacology due to the threat of their extinction. With the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, demand for blue blood for vaccine and drug testing has skyrocketed. Several species of horseshoe crabs have already been recognized as vulnerable. In the US, biomedical companies are allowed to catch these arthropods, collect a portion of the blood, and then release them in the area where they are caught. According to the US authorities, in 2021, almost 720,000 individuals were caught for this purpose, of which 112,104 died. It usually takes the blood of 2 males to fill a sample bottle, whereas females, which can be 25% larger than males, are usually able to fill the bottle on their own. Typically, about 30% of the horseshoe crab blood is extracted in 30 minutes. After the blood is drawn, the vendors return the animals to the coastal water from which they were originally taken. In total, the horseshoe crab is away from home for about 48 hours. It's no coincidence that he said 30%. This amount of blood is taken so that the animals can continue to live. However, the procedure does not go without a trace. First of all, because immediately after the blood is taken, they are very sluggish, weak, and can become easy prey for predators. In addition, females reproduce less after the blood draw and produce more meager offspring. Plus, the animals spend quite a bit of time out of the water. This causes stress and sometimes injury. During the breeding season, horseshoe crabs appear in large numbers in the intertidal zone and are mass commercially harvested. For hundreds of years, in Japan and the USA, they have been used to make fertilizer and pet food. This treatment of the species has hit their population hard enough. Now, such use of these animals is under a ban, but some careless agrarians continue to destroy crabs for their own purposes. You know what the weirdest thing is? Some people drink the blood of horseshoe crabs. Yes, people do that. It is believed that the blood of this animal is like nectar, and people include it in their diet to stay healthy. Not to mention, their population is threatened by habitat loss due to rising sea levels, as the Atlantic wrote about back in 2018. These crabs are used for food and even as bait in fisheries. In addition, humans aren't the only ones who depend on horseshoe crabs. A rare migratory bird, the Icelandic sandpiper, feeds on their eggs. The fewer horseshoe crabs there are, the worse the situation will become. Migratory birds, who also rely on the future offspring of horseshoe crabs. They need them to continue their journey, and just imagine what would happen if these birds were deprived of such nutritious prey. In fact, one link in the food chain would disappear along with the horseshoe crabs, and that could be catastrophic. For these reasons, animal rights activists are pushing for the development of synthetic alternatives to test vaccines for toxicity, the New York Times reports. What's more, such an alternative has already been created but is still being tested. So what was their secret to survival when so many species disappeared one by one? The main element of their defense is a chitinous shell, like many other arthropod species. It's a very dense and very hard exoskeleton. They don't really have an endoskeleton, bones and cartilage like humans. But look at it from below. It looks like a scorpion or a spider. And the sword on the end of their tail not only gives them their distinctive appearance, but helps them with orientation, defense against predators, and even reproduction. What's even more amazing is that the horseshoe crab has no teeth. Being completely omnivorous, it has to absorb food by tearing it into small pieces. Food can be small invertebrates, mollusks, fish eggs, algae, and the remains of decomposing organisms. By the way, horseshoe crabs can be kept as a pet in a spacious aquarium with salt water and a large layer of sand so that it can burrow. They can be fed finely chopped meat as well as oysters and worms. On the front of the face, you'll see these little spots. They are compound eyes. This animal actually has 9 eyes in total, 2 here, 5 light-sensitive eyes on the top of the carapace, and then on the underside, 2 simple eyes that they actually use to sort of sense the environment. And scientists believe that the eyes on the underside are actually left over from when they were in the larval stage. Its shoulders, or the inner joints of its paws, resemble very real tongs. With their help, it grinds up its prey before sending it into its mouth. The horseshoe crab feeds on just about everything from small clams, worms, and fish eggs to algae and decomposing organisms. The horseshoe crab breathes using flap gills. Each flap contains about 150 thin plates with which it consumes oxygen dissolved in the water. As long as these plates remain moist, the animal can breathe. Like fish and crustaceans, horseshoe crabs reproduce by throwing eggs. When they emerge into the world, the little ones do not yet have a tail and seem to be clothed in a soft shell. But after a month, they grow out of the shell, which has time to harden and often shed it. The length of an adult horseshoe crab can reach 60 centimeters, and of course, he more than once has to discard the shells that interfere with the growth of the body. Despite its vicious appearance, intimidating spiky tail, and creepy set of legs and claws, horseshoe crabs are one of the friendliest marine animals you may come across. If you see one in the wild, just admire it from a respectful distance. If you see the animal flipped over on its back, don't be afraid to pick the animal up and gently put it back in the water. Just don't touch the horseshoe crab by the tail, otherwise you might damage it. And don't forget to subscribe to join me on my next adventure.